Among the most dangerous places to be in this very dangerous world is on Vladimir Putin's enemies list. And there's some pretty strong evidence to suggest, though precious little proof, that it is also a hit list. Joining me now to talk about some of the names on that list and how they got there are Jonathan Sanders. He is a former Moscow correspondent for CBS News and now a journalism professor at Stony Brook University. His latest book is The Russians Emerge. And I also want to welcome Ric Prado. He is a 24-year veteran of the CIA and the author of Black Ops, The Life of a CIA Shadow Warrior. And thank you both for coming on the show tonight. Jonathan, let me begin with you. We heard, in the last week, feels like it's been a month, but it's only been a week since this all began, that Putin sent, killers, 400 or so, just to find Vladimir Zelensky, the president, of Ukraine. And there is some precedent here on killing enemies that are in leadership or potential leadership positions. In 2004, Viktor Yushchenko was poisoned while campaigning for the Ukrainian presidency. Right. He did survive. He did become president. But how is it that Putin can get away with this for so long? And somehow there's just not concrete evidence, or is there and it's hidden?
Well, Ashleigh, look, if we have a problem with somebody in the United States, we go to K Street for those high-priced lawyers and lobbyists. If Mr. Putin has a problem with somebody and he can't intimidate them, he goes to K Street, Kill Street. I can't tell you how many of my friends, journalists and others, have been murdered. And in fact, today, when the last doors of the openness in the press that began under Gorbachev were slammed shut, we should pay attention to some of those names. Boris Berezovsky was head and owner of the largest TV company in Russia, and that's some of the power he used to help get Putin into power. That you have to separate out the kind of enemies that are murdered. He occasionally murders people who are former KGB agents or other Secret Service agents who've gone over to the West and he feels betrayed him. But more and more, he's been killing journalists. He's been killing the best and the brightest of the journalist corps. I can't tell you how many funds and awards and grant programs I've been sat on for friends of mine who've been rubbed out under the Putin regime.
It's just remarkable to know that this just happens with impunity, it seems. So let me ask you this, Rick.
Ashleigh, we're used to having rule of law, and we're used to having honest police. And those things do not exist in Russia. They were beginning to get underway. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's luxurious to live this way in America. So, Rick, let me ask you this. The current thorn in the side of Putin is Alexander Navalny, who is imprisoned and who was poisoned on a flight in 2020. And when the world pointed to him and said to Putin, "You have done this," this is what Putin's response was. Let me play this for you. Talk about gaslighting. Take a look.
If someone had wanted to poison him, they would have finished him off. His wife addressed me, and I gave the command right away to let him go to Germany for treatment.
So, Rick, I actually believe him. Like, strangely enough, I do. Only in that, does Putin actually fail when he wants someone targeted for death?
Well, you got to understand that the last statement that the gentleman made is very true. We cannot judge our enemy's morality by our morality. We will come short because it's hard for us to comprehend the mentalities that we're dealing with. There is no doubt that this man is a Stalin-like, a Khrushchev-like individual. And what surprises me is that people are surprised that Putin is doing this, killing people and invading countries. That's what Russia is known for doing. Communism of itself is expansionistic and totalitarian in their control. And when Putin took power, the first thing that he said was, "I want to resuscitate the Soviet Union." There's only one way of doing that, and that's by annexing Poland, Ukraine, and whatever else is in his way.
Yeah, and let's be clear, on that hit list, some are already dead and some are not yet. I mean, God forbid, dead. So there is Sergei Skripal, who, along with his daughter Yulia, in 2018, was poisoned with a nerve agent on a bench in England. that was something that shocked a lot of people because it happened on foreign soil. And then we look at these boxers in Ukraine, the brothers, the Klitschko brothers, Vitaly and Vladimir Klitschko. There they are pictured. One is the mayor of Kyiv. They have been targeted for death as well, just for being the mayor. But I guess now that we're hearing about the hundreds of mercenaries that Putin is sending into Ukraine, is a bunker enough for these guys? Do they need to get out of Ukraine? And will it be easy for Putin to kill people in Ukraine right now if he's got his targets set specifically on certain people? I'll give that one to you, Jonathan.
Well, I think Putin has sent in special forces and who knows how many agents who work in Lubyanka. That's the former KGB, now FSB headquarters. They're good at being assassins. But let's be clear here. Mr. Putin does that only when he feels forced into a corner. And the worse this war goes, and it looks like it's not going according to plan, the worse things are going to get. As horrible as this last week has been, I hate to say it, it's going to get worse.
All right, Rick, to that end, one of the things we heard was that Vladimir Putin plans to have public executions. I don't know if it's true or not, but it's certainly in the fog of war that's been making the rounds. Question, is that effective in breaking the spirit of the Ukrainians, or will it have the opposite effect?
Well, the first thing is his capability and his willingness to do it. You know, I grew up in Cuba during the communist regime, and even as a 9-year-old kid, I saw people executed, people hanging from trees. And it's an intimidation tactic. You got to understand that a communist government that has total control over a particular area, they're less concerned about how you influence people in a gentle way when, you know, making examples of those that don't, it's a lot more efficient. And it was efficient in Cuba, and it's efficient in Russia, and it will be in Ukraine as they continue to gather territory. And once that territory comes under their control, history will repeat itself.
Yeah,
except Russia
reality,
is not communist now.
Yeah, there is that part.
I mean,
Jonathan
authoritarian
Sanderson,
and communist are very different. You're welcome.
Yes, yes. But again, in war, there's a lot of mystery, and how the resolution will turn out also quite mysterious. Thank you both for your time tonight. I do appreciate it. Look forward to having you back. Thank you for watching. Click the red subscribe button below so you can get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.